Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And we're just getting started with our first webinar in the Building a Data Science Team series. Now, before we introduce our guest today, our guest speaker, and get started with the webinar, I would like to tell you a little bit about the series and ELU. My name is Lara. I am the community manager at European Leadership University. We are a fairly newly founded university. We were founded a few years ago to address the tech skills gap in Europe and specifically in the Netherlands. So we offer part-time flexible degree programs, for example, in data science, a master in data science, for global talent and to get them job-ready skills. So we have a focus on competency development and mastery, a practical focus, always in conversation with the industry. Now, in our conversations with the industry, we've also seen that there is some more education to do in the Dutch market regarding data science. Of course, data science is quite a hype, and there's also a lot of need for new data scientists in the Dutch labor market, but maybe it's not always as well understood as a field beyond the hype. And secondly, also for data scientists and data professionals to come together. So this is why we are organizing this series, to kind of demystify data science and also to look at how you can manage, build up, recruit different data science teams. This is the second series, and today with me is Joanneke Meijer from the MCM Data Collective. Joanneke, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And Joanneke is a data scientist herself, and today she is a data science manager at Amsterdam Data Collective. She started as a data scientist there. She got her degree in econometrics. I think that's quite a common thing within data science for people to maybe come from more of a statistic, economics, finance background and move into the field. But we might also have some time to go over that today. Sorry for my cats in the background. Yeah, without further ado, we'll get started. Now, if you have any questions, we have some questions prepared, but we'd also love to hear from you. Perhaps also we can maybe do a short round of introductions. So we can do a brief round, starting with Joanneke, and then to hear also from you in the audience, maybe where you're working, what your title is, and what brought you to the webinar today. Joanneke, would you first like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Lara, for your introduction. That was actually quite good. So I studied Econometrics, Master Operations Research. And basically from there, I indeed started with working as a data scientist directly. So directly going into those specific problems. And from there on, I developed and became senior data scientist and now managing data scientist. So indeed, I'd love to hear all your questions and answer them. Maybe Mina, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Mina. I'm master student degree in Iran University, and that's it.
Thank you, Mina. Is there anyone who would like to go next and tell us what brought them here today? Yes, Onur, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Onur. I've been working for the past 8 years. Started back in Turkey. Actually studied engineering, but then ended up in banking. Since then, I've been working with data, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been in the Netherlands working in Rabobank. But I'm also trying to improve myself. Do some online courses, etc., to become more like a data scientist. So this is an exciting event for me, and I'm really looking forward to hear more.
Great, thank you for joining. Maybe Tim, you can go next.
Good. So sorry, I was on mute. I studied computer science a long time ago and moved on to become the CEO of a marketing firm. I'm starting something new, so a new company with some colleagues. We're focusing on tech-driven marketing and sales for bigger brands. And a big part of it is actually data analytics. So one of the colleagues is the former data analytics lead of Alibaba from China. He couldn't be here today, so I'm taking notes on his behalf. So I'm really looking forward to learn how to build a data team.
Great, thank you. Rolf, can we hear from you?
Hi, yes you can. My name is Rolf Lange. I've studied econometrics in Rotterdam also a long time ago. I've been active for data science at Ortec, but in the meantime I've wandered off more to building software with teams for automated real-time scheduling. But I'm trying to get back more into the game of data science again, so that's why I'm joining today.
Thank you. And finally, Ovidiu, can we hear from you as well? If you're unable to use your microphone, you can also introduce yourself through the chat and let us know what brought you here today, maybe your current position. So it's great to have you all here, and definitely do contribute with your own questions. You can either use the chat or the Q&A, or maybe you can raise your virtual blue hand on Zoom, and we'll also make sure to incorporate and answer any of your questions. Perhaps first of all, we can talk a little bit about what the day-to-day actually of data science is. So Joanneke, can you walk us through maybe what you really do for Amsterdam Data Collective and what your workday and your responsibilities look like there?
Yes, thank you. So basically that's maybe good to say. And first, a small introduction of Amsterdam Data Collective to place it all in perspective. So Amsterdam Data Collective is a consultancy firm. From the start of my career, I've been working as consultant. Many fields from retail to finance to healthcare. Amsterdam Data Collective is mainly large in the finance sector. And we're building up now our practice in the public sector as well. So writing a lot of public tenders, which is actually fun. Beside that, so what are my day-to-day things that I do as a manager as opposed to a data scientist? So I still do the data scientist work as well. It depends really on the project, what is needed. If more the manager role is needed or if more the data science role is needed. So I can do both. And I really like that because as a manager, it really helps to understand what the people are doing to accomplish a goal, to really help them in prioritizing, in helping them out with issues. So I really like that combination, and I think that's really strong. What does that look like from day to day? So basically, part of it is now building that public sector with Casper. Casper is the sector lead of the public sector. So basically what that means is we're looking through a lot of tenders that are specific towards data science, data engineering. We'll touch upon that a bit later in the questions from Lara. And basically we write those, we decide on which we want and we write those. And the other side is for directly for the customers. So say, for example, we get one of those public assignments. Basically what I will be doing is guiding the team as a manager. So I will be helping. We have a certain framework that we use at the start of a new project. We decide on several things. High over, that's basically the team side. Which skills do we need? Why do we need them? But also, how are we going to work together? Everyone is different, likes different things a little bit. Also a bit on the side of what is your, how do you say it in English, intrinsieke motivatie? So what do you really like and how do you want to grow? It's really important to know that before you start a project, because if people have that and find that in their project, they're really driven to do anything. It's besides data science, it's a broader topic, but we think that's important. And then we go into the other side, like more the technical side of things. And what do we actually need to deliver on the project? We look into that, but we also look into the process. So how often do we need, for example, stand-ups, but also how often do we need moments to decide together what direction to go? Do we need workshops with people who we need to convince? Because it's not just the solution, we want to accomplish things. And as a last thing, we basically identify different people, the stakeholders who are out there. So who is important to convince of the thing we're building, and what is needed for that person to actually make it part of their daily use or support it or whatever they need to do.
Thanks. And you've, of course, started out as a data scientist within the company. So how would you compare your current responsibilities to your previous role as a data scientist?
Yes. So basically, as a data scientist, it depends a bit on the size of your team, right? So if you're doing something alone, you're responsible for all of it. So that's not so much different than being a manager, actually. The real difference in there is that you're helping others to do that thing. So you have to say, in base it's the same thing. You need to have an overview, and you need to know what the priorities are, how to communicate them. The only thing is you have that whole team side, the whole first thing I talked about. So do you have the right skills in your team? How do you work together? How do you motivate them? That is the whole new part for a manager, as opposed to doing everything by yourself, maybe. And if you're doing everything in a team and only have been told what to do, then obviously you also need that whole big picture, the stakeholder management, all the things around that you need to also gather knowledge about and practice with, basically.
So we'll talk a little bit more about also the management of data science and data science teams later on, but I want to talk a bit more about also your journey in becoming a data scientist. Of course, the interesting thing is that few people can say they were dreaming of becoming a data scientist when they were a child, because there may not have been data scientists at the time. So what was your journey into data science, and how did you get started?
Oh, that's a nice question. I'm thinking of two things actually that are just kind of funny to shortly touch upon. But when I was really young, I actually said that I wanted to be the boss of Albert Heijn, like the big supermarket in the Netherlands. So just a funny sidetrack. And basically in high school, I was very much in doubt, because I really liked studying, but I also really liked musicals. So I did a lot of musicals beside my study. I did pre-education for that as well. So I basically had to decide in that way if I wanted to go into performing, or I wanted to do a study like econometrics. Basically, I chose the study, and why I chose econometrics. And basically from there and choosing econometrics, I already knew that I wanted to be a consultant. So what's in the name, most of the consultants in that field are basically data scientists. So then you kind of already know that you want to go there. But why did I want to go there? I really like to change the world for the better. And I think there's a lot that can be done with data that is not yet done. So for example, I started up a really nice project. It's called Good Base, and it looks into sustainable clothing. I'll be speaking about that next week on the Open Data Science Conference of Europe. But I can speak a bit more about it here too, if you're interested in it. But that's basically my passion, changing the world for better through data science in any way possible. I think there's so many things that we could still do, and that's from the start been my dream, basically.
And that's really great to hear, of course. And do you think it's a difficult challenge to kind of translate to people who may not have much of an understanding of data science, the potential and the value that data science can bring? Because right now, a lot of people might be scared of AI, scared of data breaches, privacy, and not maybe see what good it can bring. So do you feel it's challenging to kind of maybe convince other people or translate this message to others that you can use data for good?
Yes, I think I have two separate answers to this question, I think. So on the side of, is it difficult to convince people? And on the other side, the fear. So I'll first talk a bit about the convincing people. I started out at another consulting firm, IGNH Consulting, IGNH. And basically that was already a big management firm, but they just started out with an analytics team. So I was with a few others, I was basically convincing all those very stubborn consultants that we would add more value than they would do if it was a data project, that we could bring actually more. And they already did so many great things, so why would they bring us, right? So we really had to discuss with them what the value was. And I think that's often underestimated, how much, how little people understand from themselves. You really have to guide them. And in what I saw there is when you guide them, they really get enthusiastic and you can really go far. And if you should just start small. When we started with very small projects and people got enthusiastic about it and it went like really big. I still remember that there was this one time where there was a consulting colleague of mine, so not a data scientist, but just the consulting side. And she was like, hey, I'm a week on holiday, but I'm actually in the budget. So we have budget for a week and I can't fix this. So can you please have a look? It's a lot of data. So I went in there for a week, and out of there, they're still at that old company. They still have a tool running that actually was built all around it. That was years ago. So that very small thing, and just convincing people in 1 week with a very small thing, is very strong.
We'll talk also more later in this series about how to work with other teams. And I think you see also an increase of titles like analytics or data translator, specifically working to kind of translate the data science to other teams or maybe stakeholders in the company. But today I want to focus a bit more also on the composition of a data science team and the different roles within it. So what are the most important roles you frequently see in data science team, whether that's at Amsterdam Data Collective or maybe more generally?
Yeah, I think it's nice to put that a bit in perspective. So I think there's two fields going on right now, so to speak, in discussing which roles there are. There are some people who are actually the extreme group on one side, basically says there's so many roles and we have to be way more specific, and they make like so many terms out of it. And there's this other side now starting that basically says a data scientist should be able to do all. So there's these fields going on, and I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. So based on your team size and your goal, you should see what you need. If you're by yourself, obviously you need to do all. If it's a small project, you need to be able to do all. Maybe on some parts you can ask some help if you're not sure enough, good enough. But you need to have some background, in my opinion, of everything that goes on between the different roles. When you get big, then in my opinion, there are three main different roles. So that's basically data scientist, data engineer, and analytics translator, or data translator, or however you want to call it. And if you put them together, basically, indeed, the analytics translator is the person who communicates about everything, because often you see the data scientist and data engineer are very technical and sometimes find it a bit difficult to communicate what is really needed. But that's the first and the last key things that need to be done. You need to really understand the question and you need to really communicate it clearly. And I think that is often underestimated. So that's why you see more about the data scientist and the data engineer. But I think the analytics translator needs more attention, generally. Not more compared to the other two, but more compared to what's going on in the world.
So you say there's mainly three roles that you highlight: data scientist, data engineer, data translator. What is the main difference between the three, or what is the different backgrounds maybe of the three roles?
Yes, so if you start from the beginning and the end, so the data translator is mostly at the beginning and the end. The data engineering is after the analytics translator, and the data scientist is after that. So basically the data translator picks up all the questions, makes sure that the questions are answered correctly, does, in my opinion, need to understand about the data science and the data engineering as well. So that person also needs some technical background. But then you go over indeed to the data engineer mostly. And the data engineering is mostly preparing the data in a correct format, getting it. Then the data scientist basically makes the model. And the data engineer can take over again. It's also all collaborating in this, right? I'm saying it now very structurally, but after the data scientist made the model, the data engineer can, for example, make the solution itself. So say, for example, a web app or just an app for your phone, or you need something that it fits in, right? So you can't just give a model most of the time and expect it to be magic. So there the data engineer takes it over again, and then you have the data translator again.
And would you say that companies that might be a bit more new to data usually first hire a data scientist and then kind of build out a team of the other roles aside those data scientists?
Well, what I see at this point most currently is that people use those terms all meshed up. Mm-hmm. So a lot of companies that start out with building these data science teams don't really know what they're looking for. And then you basically, depending on who comes first, you get a person that is more geared towards one of the three, or has more experience in it at least. If they do start with a data scientist, sometimes that's challenging because you also need a really good data foundation, and you need that analytics translator, because if you just go and work on data science stuff without really thinking about it, then it can happen that a whole team of data scientists is basically lost and people don't see results. And they say, yeah, you have a really nice proof of concept, and you say lots can be achieved, but we really don't see it. That's actually an issue we see very commonly. So yeah, it's difficult in there.
Mm-hmm. And how do these different roles work together? Could you unpack that a little more?
Yes. So basically, if you have a large team, you will have, depending on what's most heavy in your project, it depends on how many people you need in which specific role. I think the analytics translator, you don't need more of them. You basically need one, or you should be really big, but basically one. And then depending on how big your data lake, for example, already is, you need more or less data engineers. So say you have to start up completely from scratch, then you'll need a lot of data engineers and less data science. If you already have the data, it's a really good quality, then you can go much bigger on the data scientists.
And which of the roles do you think is now most in demand on the Dutch market?
Well, there's a few answers I could give. So basically, people most of the people see data scientist as the most sexy. So people tend to look for that one. However, I think most work, the actual work without the terms, so in the vacancies, it might say data scientist, but the most work actually right now is in data engineering, because the quality of the data, at least in the Netherlands, is of many companies, at least I've seen a lot in the finance, retail, and healthcare sector, is not high. So there's a lot of data engineering needed.
Yeah, I think the titles, of course, also become conflated quite often. And a data engineer might not be doing the same in one company and one sector as a data engineer in another. So it's probably always helpful to really look at the job description and talk through the actual responsibilities.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit.
Challenge them. If someone is building up a new team and you like that challenge and you want to be part of them, challenge them and ask them, like, did you really think things through? And why do you need that data engineer? Or why do you already need data scientist? Is there already data I can work with? Because if there's not, you will be very frustrated in the company as well, and you'll just, it won't work.
So in a lot of companies, they may not have a data science team, or they have a business intelligence team in addition to the data science team. Do you think data science is kind of the transformation of business intelligence, or do you think it's something like very different? Or what is the difference between the two?
Well, it's also a term that's used, business intelligence, in many different ways. So I think there's some teams out there that's called BI, and that's very close to data science, but there's also BI teams out there that are not doing something that's very close to data science. So it depends. And I think there should be always one goal in common, is that you want to achieve nice things with data. You want to achieve actionable insights from your data. But it really depends on how the BI team is made, if it's data science or not, or connected or not.
Mm-hmm. I do want to also remind everyone that if you do have any questions that you would like to ask to Joanneke, please do leave them in the chat or in the Q&A, or if you would like to unmute yourself, you can also raise your hand and we can give you the mic. I want to talk a bit more also about your role as a manager of projects, of teams. So you already said that when you were younger, you wanted to be the boss of Albert Heijn. So I guess you've always had some leadership ambitions. But how did you really get into this management role?
Yes, so basically, I think you can make most impact out of a management role. And it's also the role that I am, from myself, I really like to do, because I really like to grow people. I am a mentor as well. So that coaching, mentoring role and guiding people and helping them to become better, it's not just a mentoring role. It's very much as a manager on a project. You have much more influence, sounds negative, but influence on a person when you're the manager on a project, because you're in contact on a daily basis. And for example, my mentees, I talk to them way less frequently. So as a manager, you can not just accomplish my ambition, so accomplishing good things for the world with data science, but also helping people to grow. So I think, that combination of the two really, makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. Great. And it's always great, of course, to hear when you can put some mentoring and coaching into your leadership, rather than just a very maybe top-down approach. We did get a question from Tim. If you could maybe give an example of a project focusing on the composition of the team. So kind of maybe talk through the composition of a data science team through the example of a project.
Yes, I can do that. And I can take the Good Base project and talk a bit about how it developed as well. So basically, it's a data science for good project. So it's not a standard project for us with many people starting, but we started out with an intern. So an intern together with me started the project. And that intern basically had to do everything, because there was only this intern and me. I could help him, of course, but mainly I was the managing part, and he was doing the data science, the data engineering, and I was, I think, the analytics translator role mostly. So if there's so few people, you have to have different hats on, basically. And now the project is becoming bigger. There's more people involved, so then the roles change. So basically, depending on what is needed in the project, for example, now it's not just only about the model anymore, which that intern mostly made, Leon. It is more now about, for example, the front end. So we made a website and we recently launched a plugin, and those are very different skills. So we needed more the data engineer side, and there is that person basically jumps on the team to perform those type of roles. On the other hand, on the model side, we still want to improve a lot of things. So we really want to have on the team, I'm more now looking for data scientists to join again, because I really want that model to be improved again. So basically, over the time of the project, playing around with really knowing what you want, understanding the skills you need, and understanding your team well enough to know who you need then. Does that answer your question, Tim?
Or Tim, if you would like, yes. Okay, great. So what I understand also from this example, and what I can imagine being in a manager role, is that you're also involved maybe in the hiring or recruitment process of data scientists?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what is it that you look for when you are recruiting new people on the team?
Well, I really like to quote my very first mentor there. He, besides data science, just generally which type of people you should want on your team, is he basically talks about three key, how do you say it, characteristics. So you should show ambition, you should be proactive, and you should be smart. And if you have those three ingredients, you're set up for success. And basically from there on, so those are the three main characteristics if I interview someone that I look for. And obviously beside that, you need much more for a specific role. But if those three aren't there, it's hard to get there. So those are really the basis that we're looking for. And then, for example, for a data scientist, what you could do is, and what we do, is have a case. So they actually get a problem for us. They get a data set from us, and we ask them to solve that problem. We ask them not just to give that data science perspective, so to be able to code and explain the code, but also ask them to present it as if then I'm taking the role of a CEO of some company, and I act like I don't know anything about data science. And they should be able to do that as well. That's more the data and the analytics translator role then that we're testing in them, to also be able to see how they do that. And obviously they don't need to do everything perfect from the start, but we want to see their level also to see where we can help them grow and where they need most guidance.
Yeah, I think I've worked in recruitment in the past a little bit as well. And I think the characteristics that you mentioned are, of course, things to look for, are great in the team, but they might be harder to assess. So, of course, having people to actually work on a project and seeing them put them in action will be an easier way to assess their actual fit. What do you think, what are the most important, like technical and also soft skills for a data scientist?
Yes, so on the, so do you mean specifically the data science role, or like the broad with also the analytics and the data engineering role?
We can start with maybe more like the data science role, and then also unpack a little bit what maybe what profile would be better suited for an engineer or data translator role.
Yeah, okay. So I think for specifically the data science role, it's most important that you can model, so that you really understand the statistical side of things, that you don't just, well, there's this side of AI, of data science starting, it's been going on for a while, but it's getting bigger and bigger, that use a lot of brute force mechanisms like models and just let the computer run and get something out of it. It's good to know that and to be able to use it, but it's very important to understand your model and to start small. And I believe that starting small and using every time more complex models is better than already from the start taking the most complex one. Because most of the time, first understanding your data really well, then starting with some really simple statistic statistics type of models already add so much value. And often you don't even, for really just solving everything, you don't need that most very advanced. So I'm always very concerned if someone is just able to do the very advanced stuff and not the basic stuff. So the basic skills is something I really look for in a person for data science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people, of course, like you said, maybe it has been a bit of a curse on data science, but since it's been dubbed like the sexiest job of the century, a lot of people want to do the kind of the sexy things, the trendy things, but maybe not the things that are more mundane and day to day. But of course, they also need to really have a hold on those basics. So how does the skill set you just talked about compare to the kind of profile you would recruit and look for in a data translator and a data engineer?
Yes, so a data engineer, I would expect more on the software side, more on the side of understanding how data systems work, how you get information out of systems, how for example, one of the big things that's used is SQL, like really understanding that, but not just that, also understanding if you have to build a data model from scratch yourself, could you do that? Do you understand how to do that, how to connect everything, how to do that quite optimally? Like that, those are more the tasks for the engineer. And obviously, when I talked about that train, on the other side, are you able to, for example, make a web app, communicate back to your customer in that way? So those are more the skills, I think, for the data engineer. And for the analytics translator, I think it's mostly on the soft skills. So if you hire a data scientist or a data engineer, you are looking if there is how those skills are. And those are mostly communication and skills, but also asking questions, really on the genuine interest to really understand something. And that really helps with just being curious. That's a very important thing for an analytics translator.
Yeah, I can imagine and understand that it's best to recruit a team of the different roles, because it would be very challenging to find all those skills in one person as a data scientist, of course. So we're coming towards the end. We're just going to go over some final few questions. Again, if you have any of your final questions as well, do drop them. So working with your clients and also talking to people in the industry, what are some of the main challenges you see for data science teams?
Yes, so one of the main challenges I see, and that's why I so much emphasize that analytics translator, is that there's a lot of people out there who can do proof of concept at this point in time. So there's some general nice idea, there's some general data, and they make something out of it that in small looks really good, and people get very enthusiastic about it. They want to continue with that, but it gets stuck there. So often it doesn't get a step further. It doesn't evolve anymore from there. So the biggest challenge generally in the field at this point is making sure that it gets further than that specific point. That that you really make that impact, that it is really actionable and really usable and really extendable as well. Because it's hard for people to, that's more than the engineering side. So the data scientists then make, for example, something really great, and the data engineer says, okay, but if 10 times as much people will use it, it will crash. Like, it's not built to last. Like, those things are now most complex.
And have you seen any maybe strategies or examples in the market within Amsterdam Data Collective or outside in the market of people kind of addressing it or having a good strategy to solve this issue?
Well, in the conferences, you see more and more packages, solutions, and things coming on the market that help you with maintaining and keeping everything online. So it is developing. and there's many people seeing this problem. I don't think it's at a stage yet where one of them won and you can just easily pick one and go with it. And I also think that that will never really happen, because you really need that analytics translator. Because if you at the start didn't think this through, then you really most of the time set up for failure. So from the start, and there's no solution I could give you for that, just that you need someone who really knows this and thinks about it. There's no software solution you can buy for that. You really have to think everything through, at least on a high level, how it's going to develop, and how, if that proof of concept works, how is it going to be big? Because if that's not an option, then it's always going to stay a proof of concept.
Thanks. And yeah, maybe in closing, we have some people here who are either already in the industry or kind of trying to move in the industry or move back into the industry. What is your advice for people who want to start a career in data science?
That's a good question. I'm thinking about that. Do you mean what is your advice with regard to what you should learn, or more on how you should get a job?
I guess, yeah, how to get started really practicing your data scientist in a job or through a freelance or consultant role.
Yeah, so basically, I think you learn a lot while doing it, but you also need those basic skills before you start. So that's always a juggle, right? So there should be enough to start with, but you learn most on your job. I don't think there's a one-cut answer for everybody if they should start in consulting or in an internal data science role. That's just, I think in both you can learn a lot and do really great things. And it depends more on your character and what you like to do. If you want to be a consultant, yes or no. I don't think that everybody who's going to be a great data scientist needs to start as a consultant.
Mm-hmm. So one final question also from Tim, who is still listening with us. Great. So you spoke about the three roles: data scientist, data engineer, data translator, and at Amsterdam Data Collective, you have a sector focus. Do you also see a need for specialization in functional domains such as marketing, logistics, or finance?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting discussion. So you either, as a data scientist, could specialize, or you should always work together with specialists, because I do believe that if I start, for example, in the public sector, I have not worked yet in the public sector, I do need experts. I am not going to make something without asking people what they need, what they do day to day, what they, how they work. So it's either or. So I don't believe in data scientists who just do their thing in their small little box. You do need, or yourself, that sector knowledge, or you can get it from basically the person who is in that sector. And what we believe at ADC is that as a starter and as for the first few years, so as a consultant themselves, they don't need to specialize yet. So they can switch between the different sectors. If you get large, if you get a level higher, so for example, my level and above, we do specialize. So that's why I'm specializing towards the public sector now. Because if I guide the teams and have that knowledge, it's okay for my consultants not to have that knowledge, but when we grow that sector more and more, it is very important that I have the knowledge. Does that answer your question?
It seems so, and full agreement as well. So we're coming to the end of the session. Joanneke, is there any kind of like final advice or final remarks, thoughts you want to share with the group?
Well, one of the things I would like to say is an open invitation to you all. If you have any questions remaining, or in the coming days something pops up, find me on LinkedIn and just send me a text. I'm always open to that. I can always also put my ADC email in here. One sec. and you can reach me on there as well. I'm just very curious to get in touch and see if I can help anywhere, or have a nice discussion, or hear if there's something that you really didn't agree on. I also like some discussion. I can also learn from that. So yes, and thank you very much for your interest.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joanneke. I think it was a very exciting conversation. You really helped me also to understand the different roles in a data science team as someone who is not so familiar with the tech industry. This is part of a series, so we will have ongoing webinars every Thursday for the next 5 to 6 weeks. We'll be also covering the skill sets, diving a little deeper into the different skills within the data science team, management strategies, common challenges, and also working with other teams in future webinars. So you can find the full program on our website. If you don't yet are part of our general course, you can also sign up to get Coursera access and have access to the accompanying course on Coursera, which is developed by Johns Hopkins University. Also, thank you so much for everyone joining, and thank you for your contributions as well. You have Joanneke's invitation to leave feedback or ask her any questions that came up. Thank you again, and everyone have a great evening. Thank you, Joanneke.
Thank you very much.